And Dr. H A Hellyer, he's Senior Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute for Defense. He joins us now. Dr. Hellyer, all these concerns about energy, and if we remember, Iran's justification for attacking its Gulf neighbors has been the basing of military assets in these Gulf states. Very clearly, Iran's objectives extend far beyond just military assets.
Thank you, Sue. It's always a pleasure to be on the program. I think that Iran's strategy is pretty clear. Iran wants to apply pressure to Gulf countries that have relationships, strong relationships with the United States, in order to force those countries to then apply their own pressure on the U.S. to halt the attack and to restrain the Israelis. I think it's a very, very unwise strategy. Because I think the conclusion in the Gulf is more likely to be that they may feel forced to actually line up with the Americans in order to get this over and done with quicker and sooner rather than later. So the Iranian strategy has a chance of winning, but frankly, at this rate, at this stage, the risk of actually pushing the Gulf Arab states into full alignment with the United States on the attack becomes more and more likely as the time goes on.
But alignment with Washington would also mean, by definition, alignment with Israel. They surely would not want to appear to be doing that as well.
I don't think they'd want to appear to be doing that. I don't think that they would want that at all. I think that when it comes to the Gulf identifies two main regional destabilizing actors, the Israelis and the Iranians. And I think they recognize the Israelis as being the far more destabilizing actor over the medium to long term. But what they're thinking about, I think, right now is the short term. The short term is that there are Iranian missiles, Iranian projectiles, Iranian drones coming onto their territory. And they've been very successful thus far at knocking out most of those attacks. I think something like 93% across the Gulf. No more than a dozen casualties across the Gulf. Okay, so, relatively speaking, they've done quite well. But I don't think that that's something that they think they can count on indefinitely. And all of these defense mechanisms are incredibly costly. I don't think that they think they can do this forever. So this isn't a preferred option, I want to say, for the Gulf. I think the preferred option is de-escalation and trying to get the parties back to the negotiation table. But if it goes on, and if the Iranians up the ante further, then I think it becomes just more likely that different Gulf states will say, in that case, we didn't want to do this, but we've got to help the Americans make sure that this threat to our security ends.
We're seeing asymmetry on many fronts. Who can outlast the other to secure better terms at the negotiating table?
Well, it's not really about negotiation terms, to be quite honest with you. I don't think that there's the space for that at present at all. I think that the cessation of hostilities would be temporary, irrespective of how it comes about. If the Americans stopped their strikes today and said, okay, we've done what we needed to do, we've taken out all the nuclear sites, taken out all the missile launchers and all of that, it wouldn't mean the end of the conflict between the U.S. and Israel and Iran. I think it would just mean a pause. And I think the Iranians know that. I think the Iranians know that this is an existential conflict now, that the Americans have made it very clear that they prefer regime change, that they're supporting. There's been multiple reports about this over the past 24 hours, supporting Kurdish Iranian groups that are currently in Iraq, that there could be further support given to other ethnic separatist groups on the ground in order to fight against the Iranian regime on the ground. I mean, this is quite existential for the regime in Tehran. And I haven't even brought up the Israelis. The Israelis have made it clear that they want regime change. So I think that what we're seeing right now is simply the Iranians trying to make the cost of victory for the Americans as costly as possible so that the regime continues to survive. And then we'll have an iron fist domestically, but less control or less influence regionally speaking. I do think this is a very dangerous moment, and especially considering the idea of drawing in Kurdish Iranian groups and supporting them, and supporting that sort of fragmentation in Iran, which invariably would lead to incredible stresses in Iraq as well, because it's not the whole of Iraq that would be supportive of this at all.
Thanks so much for that, and spelling out why this is in fact a dangerous one. Dr. H A Hellyer, Senior Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute for Defence. Thank you for joining us.